Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for what was supposed to be a live reaction and player ratings live stream straight after the game, but I couldn't do that basically. And yesterday we tried to make that happen and it didn't work out either. So here we are today for your Chelsea therapy session. And I will be honest, it's been 2 days and I'm still not over it. I clearly did miss my post-match therapy session because I'm honestly at a point where it's not like I don't care. I do care. But it's like I'm just out of words because I don't really have... I'm getting bored of all the excuses, but also the excuses are all to some extent valid. So I'm like, how can I be bored of them if they are valid? And seemingly nothing's just ever going to fix itself. Like we're linked to all sorts of strikers now, whether that's Victor Osimhen or Ivan Toney or whoever else, Boniface from Leverkusen or Jimenez from PSV, or was it Feyenoord, whichever one. I'm like, yeah, that's going to flip and fix it. Get another Eredivisie striker. Brilliant news. Do you know what I mean? But I just don't have trust that any of them will work. Like, I don't care if you pay 200 million for Osimhen. I think you put him up front and he'd score 5 goals for us. Do you know what I mean? Like, and with Ivan Toney, I'm like, well, Ivan Toney is the low block. Has he ever played against a low block? Will he help us beat a low block when he has never played against one because he's Brentford? I don't know. I'm genuinely lost for words at this point. And is Pochettino to blame? To some extent, not at all. I don't know. He's also annoying me on the one day saying, oh, it's all based around winning and, we need to win and everything else. And then every game he comes out with excuse after excuse after excuse. And I get it. But, mate, he doesn't even... big concern for me is that he doesn't even seem to have a solution. Or not even a solution. That he doesn't even seem to know what the problem is. Other than, we need to be more mature, more clinical. I'm like, yeah, well, we've been saying that for about 7 years. That's the problem. That's the real big problem because different squad, different ownership, 15,000 different managers and the same problems every time. How do you fix that? How do you fix that? It's genuinely baffling. I am joined by 2 wonderful guests. Lewis will still join us. His light's gone off in his recording room. So let's hope we can fix that. And then he should be joining us soon. If he can't fix it, I don't know what happens. But we are already joined by Charlie. Charlie, thank you very much for joining me. You were obviously there on Saturday, as always, for you. How do you feel at this point? Because we play well against Arsenal, throw it away at the end, play well again in games against, for example, Liverpool early in the season, first game of the season. But otherwise, it's kind of been pretty miserable for most of the season, really. Yeah, I know we beat Fulham. Yeah, I know we beat, bloody Brighton in the cup and Wimbledon in the cup and Luton. But it doesn't really feel like we're taking half a step forward and 3 steps backwards. That's what it feels like because even our steps forwards aren't really steps forwards because we're only getting draws. Like, even when we play well and we're all like, oh, yeah, look how good we were against Arsenal, we're getting a draw. Like, if we want to be Chelsea Football Club, how the fan base reacts, how the manager constantly talks, how the owners spend, you can't just draw and then be buzzing and then lose the next game and lose the next game. Like, I'm so lost for words as to what I even want to think. Like, yeah, trust the process. And the process comes with ups and downs. And I get that. But it's just been so long now that I mean, Brentford have more wins, Premier League wins at Stamford Bridge in 2023 than Chelsea do. Not in 2023, but since they last beat us and this last game, they have more Premier League wins at the Bridge than we do. That's shocking, man. It's Brentford.
The home form's been dog shit for years. Like this is like
not this bad though.
No, but it's maybe not this bad, but it has been terrible, mate. You even go back to under Thomas Tuchel, and we're like, when we're drawing to Brighton's and Everton's, like 2-2 against Everton, like couple seasons. Home form has been poor for a number of years. Yeah, it's probably the worst it's been, right now in a long time. But let's not pretend that this is suddenly a new thing this season that we're dog shit at home. We've been shit at Stamford Bridge for a number of years, and I'm like, yeah, of course, the blueprint to beat Chelsea. We start fast, we create a few chances, we don't take them. If you just sit tight and stay in the game, we'll give you a couple of chances, and we'll make a sloppy individual mistake, whether it's the Sassy and Mudryk doing nothing at the back stick. You'll get a goal, and then all you've got to do is sit 10 behind the ball, and we won't score. Like, the blueprint to beat us is so easy. But at the same time, what I would say as well is that, for the big games, Stamford Bridge, great atmosphere. For all the other games, I mean, I go and like obviously I had to include myself in it. Like the atmosphere is horrendous. It's crap. Like it really is. It's crap. Like there's no getting away from it. As fans, of course, you know it's hard to get behind something that is not looking great, or when you're losing, or when you're playing crap. But that's when you need the support the most. And I know it's not always easy when you're sitting there and you're watching shit and you're thinking, well, how can I really be bothered to support this? But that's when you need support the most. And I think the fans can probably do. I'm not saying it's going to make. I'm not saying it's going to make a difference to us winning, but like I think that negative energy and frustration that comes from the crowd that transmits onto the pitch, and whether it should or not, it does affect the players in a certain way. We've got to make it a more enjoyable place to play, because right now it's probably one of the easiest places to come and play in the Premier League for a visiting side. It's so easy. But do you know, in terms of the performances this season, like, are we really surprised? You know, yes, we've improved in terms of underlying metrics, and you know, you can see an identity starting to form and a style of play, etc., etc. But are we really surprised that we are still not clinical? We create a lot of chances, which is better than what we used to do. We're solid defensively still. The midfield has got a nice balance to it when everyone's available. But the same old thing, mate. I think it's fine margins. You know, if we had a clinical striker.
Can I quickly interrupt you to ask you a question? You're talking about chances, because it's a couple of days ago. How many? I'm not asking you to name every single one of them, but how many like real big chances did you feel like we had in that game? Obviously, you had your Sterling one that he skied over the bar. Like you had a couple, but I don't know. Like, sure, if we're super clinical, we can score 2-3 goals in the first half easily. I get that,
but that's what I mean. Like that football's fine margins, right? And it was all very well sitting there and saying, you know, oh, we're on the wrong side of the fine margins. That doesn't really wash all the time, you know. But it is fine margins, and I do fully believe that if we had a prolific striker, and yes, we should have addressed it in the summer. And I understand the stick for Jackson, but let me also stick up for him a little bit and hold on a second here. At no point was he meant to be leading the line for Chelsea week in, week out this season. That wasn't supposed to be happening. You know, like when Jackson, that wasn't supposed to be happening. He wasn't signed to be leading the line this season. Like, you know, when you see,
but who was then?
Well, no one. That's the point. No one was.
Who was the plan guy to lead the line?
I guess maybe Nkunku potentially, because maybe because, you know, they said Jackson was not signed to lead the line this summer. When you go back to when, you know, Ornstein and Fabrizio were like confirming the signing and all that. None of them were saying, no reports or anything were saying that, you know, Jackson was signed to be the main guy. He was never signed to be the main guy. So that's why, look, he needs to do better. But can we really be blaming him when he shouldn't even be in this position in the first place? He should be a rotation option. We should have gone out there. And I know the striker market wasn't the best in the summer, but you're telling me we couldn't get anyone that would do a better job.
But I think part of the reason why in the end we decided not to sign somebody else is because of how well he did in pre-season. And I assume also in training.
I think we probably all fell into that trap of pre-season where, you know, there's not really a tactical
He's basically Ross Barkley.
Yeah, well, I don't want to write him off because I think he's been here 3 months. I think it's unfair to say that someone's shit and not good enough after 3 months. You can't say that. But I think what's clear and is so obvious is that, A, he's not clinical. He's still raw. He's still developing. He's still learning. And he's not ready right now to be leading the line for Chelsea on a week in, week out basis. But the fact of the matter is that we don't have any other viable options. I don't really believe Amanda Breuer's that much better. Yes, he offers a bit of a different profile, but have we really seen that much from him? Not really. You can't tell me that he's the answer either. So we're in a situation now where we should be, look, I've always wanted to say that we shouldn't just sign someone for the sake of it. And I think the Nkunku injury has obviously put a massive spanner in the works. It feels like a lot of our plans in pre-season were all based around him, and we kind of didn't really know what to do now that he's out. I just think, you look at Jackson, I think he's good, but he's not ready. He's not ready to lead the line for us, and it's so obvious. And like, you know, you look at the games we've lost this season, the games we haven't won. How many of those would we have actually won if we had a clinical striker? Let's say Ivan Toney was playing for us. Let's put him on the end of that Cucurella chance on Saturday. That's probably a goal. You put him in that Raheem Sterling situation, it's probably a goal, and it changes the game.
Is it that simple though, Charlie? Is it that simple? Because would it be Toney on the end of that chance? How do you know? Because like you're talking exactly, and I'm not having a go at you. I understand it completely. I even agree with most of what you're saying. But think back 2 years ago, we were basically saying the same things. We then signed Lukaku, and nothing changed. So why would it change now?
Because I think we're creating a lot more chances now than we used
and
to.
In the beginning of that Lukaku season.
I think
we are top of the league then, mate.
I think we're playing more. I think we're playing better though. I think we're playing better foot. We're playing decent. Let's be honest here, right? We may have not got the results, right? But we aren't. You can't say we're playing shit football this season. So I don't think we are. Yes, of course, winning football is like, you can say if you're not winning, it's not great football. I get that. But if you actually look into it, cast the results aside for a second, are we really playing horrendous football this season?
I don't think parts of games we are. That second half again.
They're a low block, yes.
But you're never going to play good in a whole game. Let's be real. You're never going to be, unless you're Man City, you're never going to be amazing for a whole 90 minutes.
It shouldn't be a half against Brentford.
No, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. But what I'm saying is, if someone else, and it's all ifs and buts, but if someone else is in that position instead of Cucurella and it's a goal or whatever, or if Sterling doesn't flash one over when he should be scoring, like the game's totally different. So like, it's not like
if we get the penalty.
Yeah, well, exactly. But this is my point. It's not like I'm not coming away from game. Obviously, coming away disappointed and it's not good enough and it has to be better. Of course, I'm not making an excuse for that. What I'm saying is, like, it is fine margins. It's not like we're being comprehensively outplayed every single week. We know why we're losing because we can't fucking score goals or take our chances when it matters, and we can't break teams down. So, like, look, it's not good. We shouldn't be. We're in the bottom half of the table after 10 games. It's not acceptable. It absolutely isn't acceptable. But it's also fair to, perhaps maybe try and apply a little bit of context to the situation. Sometimes I'm not saying it's acceptable, but sometimes it's important to add. To caveat those, all the negative things with a few things that perhaps are fair. Do you not think it's fair to say that one, and look, before I say this, I'm not making any excuses. The teams that we've been able to be put out on the pitch against sides that we've lost against are more than good enough to beat those sides. But, we've not had a single match this season where we would have picked our ideal starting 11 with everyone available. We simply haven't done that. Mm-hmm. Again, like, is there any surprise that we're not doing that well? If you look at the summer, right, I think we like the recruitment. There was maybe a little bit of a concern about experience in certain areas. But what players have been signed to make an instant impact right now and are ready to deliver at the top level right now? Outside of Caicedo, perhaps? None, exactly. So are we surprised that while we're not playing?
But he's then injured.
Yeah, okay. But are we okay? So are we surprised we're not playing that well?
No, I'm not surprised.
There should be more results on the board.
No, there should be. Absolutely. I'm not making any excuses. There should be
and if
more
I look at it from a game-by-game basis, other than the Liverpool game and maybe loosely the Arsenal game, I'm low-key looking at the manager.
But what I'm saying is, what else can he do, though, right? Let's okay, for example...
He played to win the game in 90 minutes against Villa and Bournemouth.
It was a weird starting lineup.
You could not kill our entire balance against West Ham. You could not take all of our forwards off against Arsenal. He could not play with 3 centre-backs against Nottingham Forest.
But if
against Brentford.
On the Arsenal point, right? If we don't make those 2 mistakes, no one's saying anything about those.
I agree. That's why I say loosely the Arsenal. Because my only problem with that was the substitutions. But I agree. Overall, it's the individual mistakes.
Yeah. But what
even then, those substitutions, they didn't help us.
No. What I would say, right? Let's talk about lineups, right? Okay. Saturday we didn't have that many. We didn't have all the players available, right? Other than the Sassy playing at right back instead of Gusto. He said before Reece weren't fit to start, right? Are we saying? I know, obviously, Lewis, that you weren't.
And Gallagher in the pivot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I said as soon as the team come out, it's like we should have Sterling. I wouldn't have started Mudryk. If Jackson was going to start, I wouldn't have started Mudryk, and I would have had Gallagher further forward with Mudryk alongside Caicedo in a pivot. It's better balance, right? Okay, but you can't tell me that team's not good enough.
Balance wasn't the problem in the first half.
It's good enough to win, but here's what happens when you play the Sassy at right back. You kill everything on the right, so you allow Mudryk to get double team, and that kills our attack as well.
I agree, but if Gusto starts, right? Look, does Gusto start in this game mean that we win?
Probably, because it means we overlap more and we have more threat off the right-hand side. It means Mudryk isn't getting double-teamed. So which means we're probably playing better in the attack as a result. So maybe we do get the result.
But what I'm saying is, that doesn't make us score. That's the problem. It doesn't make us score, though, does it? That's my point.
It makes us play better, which could lead to more goals.
Yeah, but that can be said about anything, right? Like, I'm not. Lewis, before I go to you, I want to go to Jamie first because I haven't really let you speak yet. Because the first half against Brentford wasn't bad, really. Like, it really wasn't. We created a good amount of chances. We could have easily scored a couple of those chances.
About 30 minutes.
Okay, fair enough. But in that space of time, we could still have scored 1 or 2 goals. And if we did, we would have been plain sailing and would have won that game probably quite comfortably. But because we never do take those chances, then the longer games go on, that's when it turns on us. And I personally think it's way too simple to say, Gallagher played in the pivot, that was a problem. Or Mudryk didn't have attacking support from Disasi. Now, it's all true in that. I'm not disputing that. But look at who Brentford played. Like, that's not a reason for us not to beat Brentford. You know? Like, if Disasi can play against Mbappe at right back, he can play against Brentford at right back without costing your team the win.
He played against PSG at right back.
Apparently.
I mean, I think the whole thing contributes to the flow.
Apparently, he locked down Mbappe. Jamie, I posed a similar question to what I posed to Charlie earlier. Well, where do you stand on everything now? Because we've said 15 different reasons now, and all of them are valid reasons. Is the problem? The problem is we have so many problems all at once that it feels nearly unfixable to me. Where do you stand on that?
I don't know, man. I think for this game, I'm going to blame Poch a lot for it because to have 2 right backs on the bench and Disasi playing there, I felt bad for Mudryk because there were so many times he got the ball and they were just being double teamed, as Lewis said, and had to pass it back and recycle play. And that just constantly happened. Like, if you compare it to the left-hand side, at least Cucurella was kind of occupying another man, making a lot of runs even into the box, and that kind of gave space for Sterling to work a little bit. But Mudryk was, other than that one chance off the crossbar, he was pretty much a ghost. And also, I don't know, like, everyone's kind of saying Gallagher at the moment is one of our best players, like, he's been doing so well, but other than his work rate against like the top teams, which I understand, like playing against Arsenal, he helped a lot because we don't have much of the ball. He can help with a lot of ball recoveries and stuff like that. But against teams like Brentford, where we have 90% of the ball, I don't want this guy like anywhere near the starting lineup. Like, when he gets
what does Ugo Chukwu, like, because obviously Enzo wasn't available. So what does Ugo Chukwu give you compared to Gallagher that makes us more likely to win the game?
Yeah, that's why I think it was like, okay, maybe fair enough, because you don't need both Caicedo and Ugo Chukwu against a Brentford. We really needed that Enzo providing that creativity. I'm just saying, like, in general, because Gallagher seems to be like the first name on the team sheet, but against teams like this where we have 90% of the ball, he takes 2 touches when it should take 1. He takes like an extra touch every single time, because when you see him get the ball, he's so unaware of, like, especially in tight areas or when his back's to goal, he's so unaware of his surroundings. Like, in the first 3 minutes, I think he got a ball, had no idea man was behind him, and lost it instantly. Like, it's just stuff like that where if you're taking more touches,
how many times has that happened to Caicedo this season already? Do you know what I mean?
Caicedo looked very smooth though when he gets the ball.
I'm not trying to say that Caicedo is as bad as Gallagher or Gallagher is as good as Caicedo. By no means am I trying to say that. But there's been multiple occasions this season where Caicedo received the ball and lost it immediately because he wasn't aware there was someone behind him, or couldn't do anything about it even if he was aware. Like,
yeah, well, I just think that's him starting off
making it a bit too simple to say, Gallagher is a problem.
No, I don't think he's a problem, but it's just against weaker teams like this, like, he's not going to provide any creativity. And is he, like, the thing that excited me about him during Crystal Palace was, like, he looked like he had an eye for goal. He got in the box a lot and he could finish, but I don't see any of that goal threat from him either. So other than work rate, what really is he providing this team? I get him playing against the Arsenals where we have less of the ball, fine, but against teams like this, I think he kind of hinders the flow of our play because everything takes a little bit longer with him because he needs an extra touch. He goes into positions where it's a bit safer for him to play like a safer pass because he doesn't feel super comfortable in these kind of tighter areas, where we compare that to like the performance of Palmer, where he constantly gets the ball in like very, very tight areas, half spaces, and then he looks for those like threaded balls into like Cucurella, like we saw. He could have had like 3 assists, like that kind of creativity. He's comfortable receiving them. I just think Gallagher kind of slows the play down a lot, and yeah, that combined with the right hand side, nothing coming from there with Disasi and Madueke, I think it just killed the flow a little bit. It could have been a lot smoother with a right back, and I think obviously if Enzo was fit, that would have been better. But I don't know. If it wasn't coming from Palmer, it wasn't coming from anyone. And Sterling's so hit or miss, isn't he? Like one game, everything will go in for him. Next game, he needs about 5 chances to score. Like it's just he's always kind of been that kind of player. And yeah, just talking about Jackson quickly, I feel he's very good against like when we don't have the ball, counter attacking counter play, because he likes to receive the ball, hold it up, link it up, and then run with it. Like, but against these low blocks, he's lacks a presence in the box, where like someone like
honestly,
Toney would be.
He lacks everything against these types.
He's a very good ball runner.
There's not a single thing he provides that's useful. He can't win a header. He can't make a good run. His movement is shocking. He doesn't understand where a ball goes. He can't control a football, and he can't shoot. Like he can't do.
That's a bit harsh. I
don't think his movement
in current form. He can't do anything.
Well, we saw him against in the Liverpool game. He was pretty like everything he did was brilliant, like holding the ball up, but then he had space to run because we were playing on the counter attack a lot, and that's what he likes to do. He likes to grab. Sorry,
his runs in behind are good. It's just in the box where his awareness is. Just
he likes presence in the box. That's the thing, because I don't think he's a natural striker, and he's for a tall guy, he's not very physical either. So I think it's quite easy when for low blocks and defenders to kind of deal with him in that kind of play. But I think like if we play against one of the stronger teams where we have less of the ball, I think that's where he'll really look a lot better. But against teams like this, he's struggling.
I agree, but even against these lesser teams, right? Then okay, he makes the good runs in behind. Those are great. He has decent pace. He knows how to make those runs. That's all well and good. He stretches teams, amazing. But 99 times out of 100 so far this season, when he then receives the ball, he messes up something. Either the finish isn't there, or the touch isn't there, or he holds the ball for too long, or the following pass is poor, or the cross is like against Liverpool, because it was the first game of the season and it was the first competitive game we saw of Jackson. We were obviously very easily impressed by small things that are the good basics for a good striker. But the more we've seen him play now, I'm like, okay, you have basics on the counter. Good.
Yeah, but should we be surprised?
But nothing has come since.
But should we be surprised he's struggling, mate? This is a guy, right? This is a guy that's played 25 games, right, for the Villarreal B team. Then he had a loan at Mirandes where he played 16 games, and then he's played 35 games for Villarreal, and now he's at Chelsea. Like, are we surprised that a guy that's played top flight games, he's played what's 35 plus 16, fucking 51, right? This is a guy that, including his 9 appearances at Chelsea, has now played 60 senior games of football, right? So he played 51 times as a professional in Spain, and he's now leading the line for Chelsea. Should we really be surprised by that?
No, we shouldn't. And that's why it's not even like, as much as I criticize maybe Jackson, and we will touch on him maybe some more later. And obviously we still have to criticize him because it's him that's not doing things better. You're absolutely right. He isn't the problem. The people that signed him as the only striker are the problem, obviously. But that applies to almost every position on the pitch. You can say the same for Mudryk. You can say the same for bloody everywhere. You can say the same for Gusto is 19 or 20. If he was 24, there's zero chance in the world the manager decides to play Disasi over him. So obviously these are all the base problems. This is where I come from when I said earlier, we have hundreds of problems. Poch is making mistakes. The players are making mistakes. The recruitment team are making mistakes. But also we are, as fans, making mistakes in terms of the expectation. Lewis, finally I come to you, and Charlie touched on something very important, the whole atmosphere thing. And I do want to touch on this a little bit before we get back into the game in more detail again. Because obviously, especially Lewis and Charlie, I'm not sure how often you go to games, Jamie. I obviously can't be there as often as I would like. So it's a bit of a tricky one for me to talk about, because obviously I feel a little bit like a hypocrite because I'm not there. So how can I criticize anyone for not making a better atmosphere? But I do feel like not enough people are talking about how bad it is. And I don't and when I say bad, I don't mean it's quiet. That's a problem in and of itself, right? But when I read on Twitter that a fan had a go at Jackson in the first half and Jackson was shushing the fan, I'm like, that's all you need to know about the atmosphere and how toxic it is at Stamford Bridge. Like, and I will never understand why fans don't understand the concept of when the team is struggling, they need your support the most. Don't just turn up when we play Liverpool and Arsenal. I understand why, because we're Chelsea Football Club, we're used to winning, and everything that's not winning the league isn't good enough for our fans. But if you want to help the team get out of this again, something has to change. Something, and it's not like, we need. I mean, people laugh at the whole Arsenal thing. Arsenal have a better atmosphere since they turn up with the ultra group, whatever they want to call it. It's better than it was before. Everyone laughed at the Emirates atmosphere for years and years and years.
But it's also because they've got better. Like, that's the one thing I'll say. Like, if we play good football and we're getting results, I'd say the atmosphere would be a lot like the Arsenal game, for example. But I agree. Like, the energy needs to be a lot different with the players because they're a lot younger. They're still developing, they're inexperienced. And also, the energy wasn't the same last season. When it was that dickhead Giraffe up top, it was all silky German is all that we need and all this crap. But when it's Nicolas Jackson, we want to be on his ass, pause after 3 months. I think that's BS personally. So I'm with you on that. Like, we do need to be supporting the players a bit more. But I'll be real, the stuff that we see at Stamford Bridge nearly every time is crap. So, like, I don't really blame them. We've won one home game all season.
Do you believe, as a fan, you need to see good performance on the pitch to sing or to chant? Or
No, but I believe it motivates you more. You start getting more tense when the results aren't improving and the game's continuing. You start off well, then you start becoming a little bit more nervy, a little bit more agitated, and the atmosphere dips as a little bit as a result of that. So, like, I do agree that the performances play a part.
No, obviously. And of course they do. My point is that we've been bad, in quotation marks, not even in quotation marks, just factually bad, for nearly 2 years now, essentially. And for a while, I understand what you're talking about. Of course, the fans will frustrate, especially as fans of Chelsea who are used to winning, whether that's games or trophies. Both of them, we're used to it. So obviously, you're not going to be happy and as motivated to sing, like you say. But surely there has to come a point when this goes on for 2 years, where as a fan base, whether that's as an individual or as a collective of supporters, you have to get to a point and realize our home form has never been as bad as now. We've won less games in the Premier League at Stamford Bridge than Brentford have, since Brentford have beaten us for the first time last season and now this Saturday. Like, you can't just sit there and say the players need to fix it. No, we need to help fix it. Like, I know it's very different, but I was at my local club's game this weekend. You concede a goal, no one even stops singing. Like, it doesn't even stop when you concede. Right?
Yeah, but the culture in Europe is
I know it's different. Yeah, you're right, Lewis. Obviously, it's different. But I'm saying that still tells me that humans can sing and chant and be positive despite things going against them.
Humans can also sit there and actually call out the crap that's in front of them, like a lot of teams in Europe do. Yeah. Like Lyon fans, like PSG fans out Europe, Sporting Lisbon, Barca, Real Madrid. I could roll them all off the tongue, but we don't. We do this whole trust the process, believe in the manager. We need time and all this crap. Everyone just drinks in the PR every single week. So we're never going to be like that in Europe.
Right,
like two-faced when it comes.
It doesn't help. It don't help that, like, basically there's only atmosphere coming from one stand. Like, if you're not sat in Matthew Ardin, there's nothing anywhere else. Like, I'm not blaming Westview or anything, but Westview doesn't help at all. It's like, I don't want to say they're not proper fans in there, because there are some proper fans in there, but generally speaking, like, everyone's sat down. There's no chanting. There's no noise from that whole section. It's just a whole hospitality money making thing, right? And then, so like when you've got one whole stand completely out, and then like really it's only Matthew Arden that makes a bit of a noise and tries to generate anything, but. Like, it's so easy to play at Stamford Bridge. Like, even when we were doing well, like, I don't think the atmosphere was like miles better. It's never been a problem in the big games, but it's like when we were winning leagues and we were 80 odd games unbeaten in the league at the Bridge. Like, I don't think the atmosphere was that much different. But like, obviously, when you're winning, it's obviously everyone feels better. But when you're losing and when you sort of know what's going to happen almost before you've gone into the game, it is quite hard to get behind a team.
But also the big difference is our team at the time didn't need it. because of the characters we had, and the team now does need it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are probably still struggling to realise that this is not the Chelsea of old, and like it's quite hard to adjust and kind of reset or rewire your thinking as to what the club is now. It's different. It's going to take time to get used to it. This, whether we like it or not, and yes, we should 100% be doing better, and we should have more points on the board, and we should be doing better. Agreed. But we can't have people enjoying the business we did in the summer, because I think we all enjoyed the business in the summer. Well, the vast majority of it anyway. Maybe one or two, maybe not, but most of the business was good in the summer. We knew that these players weren't going to click straight away. We knew that this was going to be a multiple year project, and it wasn't going to work from game one instantly. We knew all these things. We knew these players would need time. We knew these players weren't finished articles. They were development players as such. And yet, the first thing we do is criticise them when they're not consistent and they don't play well. Well, what do you expect from young players? Yes, we should be doing better. And then we criticise that, we shouldn't have gone down this route. And criticise that it's kind of a long-term project. What is it that we want? We have to accept that this is a long-term project, and it could take 18 months to 2 years for this team to come good. And whether we want to give that time or not is a different thing. But yes, we're seeing improvements, not necessarily in results, but I know it's a low bar from last season. It's a low bar, 100%, but things are better.
8
right?
points behind where we were at this point last season, and obviously the whole we're getting relegated is a joke. I'm not being serious about that part, and I agree with every word you say, but I still don't think it goes to the context as far as where we are. Yes, things aren't clicking, sure, but that means you can draw a game to Brentford. You can draw a game to...
Absolutely.
We lose almost every game, and even the games we play well, we only get a draw.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is how many games, and look, this is not an excuse, right? How many games have we either lost or drawn because of individual errors?
Dozens, but that goes into last season.
So what I'm saying is,
how do you fix it? How do you fix that?
I don't know.
Because the manager drops Gusto for making
a
mistake.
Why is it also that we can have one individual mistake and never recover from it? Maybe it's because half of the home games we play with 2 forwards. Yes, winnable opposition.
But I also think
Gusto makes that mistake against Arsenal. What happens next game on the bench doesn't even come on. What happens to Sanchez, who ruins the game for us? He's in goal as if nothing happened. Where is the meritocracy? One gets dropped, the other one is in goal.
And by the way, that one who got dropped has been one of our best players this season as well.
Exactly. It's just baffling. Because the individual errors, but this is why it's so worrying to me. And I think Joe Cole said something along those lines, where it's something is just fundamentally wrong at the football club. Even Pochettino said that in a post-match interview, where he was like, well, yeah, I feel like I need to figure out a solution, because the same problems we have now were there under Lampard last season, were there under Potter last season, and were there under Tuchel last season, and at the end of the season before that. All the identical problems with a completely different set of players. Sorry?
First and foremost, that would be nice. Maybe play right backs at right backs, play left backs at left backs. Don't play a guy who's good in the 10 role, in the DM role. And maybe we'd be able to do something as a bare minimum. Maybe play to win the game throughout the full 90 minutes.
But even in games where we did pick a team that we were relatively happy with, we still don't win them.
What?
Even in games where the manager picks a team that most fans are pretty happy with, we don't win those games either.
Yeah, I could use the Arsenal game as an example for that. That's why I say I loosely blame him as well, because he took all of our forwards off. And I don't get if it's a fitness thing, because we play 1 game a week. How is fitness still an issue?
That's a whole other issue. How is everyone always injured, man? It's a joke. Mudryk apparently had fitness issues through preseason. Then he had an injury earlier this season. Now he has another injury. How does this happen? Look at the guy. Look at what he looks like. Does he look like a guy that would constantly be injured? No. You can't even be that shredded if you're constantly injured, because if you're constantly injured, you can't be in the gym regularly enough to be that shredded. How is it possible that all our players are always injured? We had no attackers on the bench. 0 attackers on the bench this weekend. Broja is out. Nkunku is out. Mudryk was out. Bloody All of them are out. Like, all of the time. David Washington came on all of a sudden.
But there was nothing on the bench. Like, obviously, you could say if he'd played Ugochukwu in the pivot, which the balance would have been better, and he's dropped Mudryk or he dropped Sterling or whatever.
Wouldn't you say?
Then there's one option from the bench. But what I'm saying is, like, that's one option from the bench. Like, realistically, if that starting 11 wasn't doing anything, no one was doing anything from the bench. Reece is clearly not fit, has made no impact against Arsenal when he come on, made no impact in this game either. You've got 2 right backs on the bench, and you've got a kid that's never kicked a ball for us before. And those are basically...
But Charlie, if he started Ugochukwu, I personally don't think that changes anything. And then we still lose.
I'm not saying we win.
We would now be sat here complaining that he set up too negatively by playing Ugochukwu. So this is only because we won, we were like, you should have done this different. But realistically, would Ugochukwu playing instead of Gallagher help anything? If anything, we would say we would have less men in the box, less attacking players. Like, it wouldn't be a better thing.
No, I just think there would have been better balance in the midfield if Gallagher had played further forward.
But do you feel we had bad balance in the first half when we should have won the game? But we didn't.
On the right-hand side, yes.
Yeah, but the Gallagher didn't change that. The Gusto Disasi is a whole separate discussion. But
anyway, like, the point is, the team that's out on the pitch was more than good enough to win, and it didn't win. Simple as that. We can argue about, should Gusto have started at right back? I personally would have done it. Should he have started? Could we have done Ugochukwu in the pivot? But ultimately, that 11 players that was on the pitch was more than good enough to beat a Brentford side that A, don't have their best player in Ivan Toney, and B, haven't, as well as they've done last season, haven't started this season particularly well. And yet, it was so easy for them. Like, that can't be right. There has to be an understanding of what the reasons are as for why we couldn't get the job done and as for why we couldn't do it. Like, as a manager, this is where I cut him a little bit of slack. Yes, you can criticize him for certain things, fair enough. But what are you supposed to do as a manager when a ball comes into the box, right? And you've got 2 guys, you've got Disasi, who's a big unit, and Mudryk, who had tracked back partially. And they just let a guy have a free header. What are you supposed to do about that as a manager?
And also Sterling letting the cross happen.
Yeah, well, this is my point, right? This is where, like, yes, he could do better. Yes, you know, you could set the team up better. Yes, you could set up to win. All these things that we've said, which are fair points. But at the same time, when you've got players doing that shit at the back post, what are you supposed to do?
I don't know, because like that is even another example. Like the day before this game, we were on here on the preview with Pice, and Pice was like, I would start Disasi at right back. Or no, he didn't even say he would. He said he thinks Poch will, because, or Colvin at left back, one of the two. For height reasons, because Brentford are so good at set pieces and we need to defend ourselves against it. So let's say Gusto starts and then we lose the game from a goal against set piece. Everyone would be having a go at the manager for playing Gusto or for not playing an extra centre back. This is what I'm getting at. No matter what the manager does, no matter which manager it is, nothing seems to work. And that's what worries me so much. And what worries me more than anything is what the some of the statements that Poch is coming out with. All of the pressure we're putting on Nkunku. All of it. When Nkunku is fit again, it will be even worse than it is now. Not because he will not play well, but because he will not be as good as people think, and he will not fix all of our problem as Poch is trying to make it out. Then the fans will be on his case. Then the fans will be on Poch's case even more, and then everything will be even worse. I've never seen anything more stupid than putting all the pressure on a player that's been injured for 4 months and has never played a professional game for the club. Why would you do that? And like Big Balls Bodie is with the super chat here, appreciate it. He says, Joe Cole's comments about fundamental problems are really scary. We need to sort potential FC sooner. Otherwise, we can permanently become mid-table. Mate, if this goes on for too long, we will get points deducted and we won't even be a Premier League team anymore because we are spending like we are in the Champions League. Look at Everton. They spent like they wanted to be in Europa League, 12 points off. If we had 12 points off last season, would we have even stayed up? Like how much, like we're talking about Osimhen and Toney, in my opinion, will fix nothing. We'll get into that conversation later. But we'll fix nothing.
Is it also a fair point?
At what point without Europe are we so fucked financially that we'll be screwed in every sense?
Is it also a fair point, this thing in the chat, right, from Vic? We've missed 20 plus big chances this season so far, right? Even if like that, look, you can blame the manager for certain things, absolutely, but when we're missing chances and big chances at the rate we're missing them at, can we really criticize the manager for that? If even half of those chances go in, we're miles higher up the table. This is what I was going on about at the start. It's fine margins. Yes, we're on the wrong side of them, and yes, things have to improve. It's not been good enough. But then when you add a bit of context, you see 20 plus big chances missed. You think as a manager, Pochettino has coached a lot more wins than we've got on the board, but once again we've been let down by our finishing. How can in 10 games
both sides can have points on it? That's the thing. Like, I'm not ignoring the fact that we've missed a lot of big chances as well. Like, I agree, our attack has not been good enough. But I also look at Pochettino. I compared the two. We've got a young, inexperienced attack other than Sterling. So with the players, I can say that they haven't done enough, but I will give them time as well. There's a manager who's in his 5th job here who's constantly making mistakes. I can't be as patient with that. You're the one who's meant to be not making those mistakes, but yet you are. The younger players, I get it. We've given them shoes that are probably too big for them to fill right now. We need more experienced attackers. I'm with you on that too. Both are correct. But the manager should be making a lot less mistakes.
Yeah, he should. He should, because you can't even argue the whole 20 plus missed chances. You can say, well, because the manager doesn't always pick the right players, these chances fall to the wrong players. The problem is
do we trust any of those players to score?
No, exactly. All of them are injured, and the problem is also none of them are consistently fit. Like, Mudryk hasn't been consistently fit. Sterling has missed games through illness. Like, Mudryk goes out partying and then he's all of a sudden dropped for God knows how long, even though just before that he played really well, but also got injured. Right? The only consistent right now seems to be Enzo, because I don't think Caicedo has been any good either. Like, Caicedo hasn't done anything more than Jorginho would have done so far at the club. Like, nothing more. If anything, he's worse at controlling play, and sure, he wins a few more tackles, but we lose all the time anyway. So clearly that's not really helping anything. I'm not trying to have a go at Caicedo, but I'm saying he has also not really delivered. So none of the players we've got in really perform. None of the players that have been here before really perform. And all the other players are injured. I just don't see how it gets better, because players will come back from injury and they will not be good. And then a new player will be out injured. And then we will say, if only that player was back. And then that won't work either. Like, I just don't even know where to go anymore, if I'm being perfectly honest. I need to quickly change the topic here. Because weird news has come out just as we have been live here. First by Pice, and then another statement that was put out by Chelsea Dodgers. Well, through Chelsea, and Chelsea Dodgers now tweeted it. Chelsea are being investigated over Willian and Eto's transfers after being flagged up by Chelsea's current owners. The Times understands financial records indicate that payments may have been made to Russian entities that were separate from any transfer fee. Right.
It's not really,
so what does that mean?
Not really a surprise, is it? We've probably paid off some dodgy geezers, haven't we?
Sounds exactly. Right. But would you mean that Chelsea, we flagged it?
Because they probably were going. I mean, to be honest, you're probably looking at they might be looking through stuff, or something might have been flagged up, and rather than waiting to be found out, you probably just
But would that get found out? Like, we signed Willian in 2013, and we signed Eto in.
It must have been found out. Otherwise, why would we report ourselves?
Do you reckon?
Probably.
The way it's written there, it just seems like Chelsea realised, and then we're like, oh, we did something wrong.
No, but the club have released a statement on it, which probably explains it better.
Yeah, I'll bring that one up as well now. I mean, Chelsea's statement on the investigation of Willian and Samuel Eto'o. These allegations predate the club's current ownership. They concern entities that were allegedly controlled by the club's former owner and do not relate to any individual who is present at the club. But, I just don't get it. Like, they were paid to entities. Okay. So, like agent fees then, right? So I don't see what's wrong with that. Now, there's maybe something wrong with it now because of Russia's, activities. But back in 2013, that wasn't happening. That was even before the war in Crimea. So, I don't understand why we're doing this or what to make of this. Because what will happen from it? We'll have another fine, because we already paid 10 million to UEFA. These owners are very good at one thing, and that's spending money. It's just what they're very bad at is knowing what to spend the money on.
To be fair, that wasn't their fault, though, the UEFA fine.
No, it weren't. But it was also us that flagged it.
Well, mate, we would have been fucked otherwise. We would have been found out.
No, absolutely. But still, it's because once something gets found out, you can still say that was the old ownership. Sorry, we didn't know. We'll pay a fine, no problem. You don't need to run around and flag it while we fucking can't win a game of football, man. Like, as if everything isn't bad enough. What are we doing? Ugh.
What I mean is the allegations must have come from somewhere. Like, you don't just randomly look at a transfer from 10 years ago and then decide to report yourself. There must have been something that's led to this.
I mean, like I say, the first statement that I brought up, like I say, it was flagged by the Chelsea owners. Tells me that we brought it up. We brought it to attention rather than anybody else bringing it to attention. But obviously, I don't know either. I mean, it's not surprising that we know the whole Willian to Spurs thing. It's not surprising at all that there was something dodgy going on. Otherwise, how would it have happened?
Are we really surprised that?
I thought this already came out a few months ago, though. Well, already meant to be being investigated over something.
Well, maybe it was this then. I don't know. But are we really surprised that Roman paid a couple of dodgy Russian geezers? I mean, come on. Like,
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Really? Should we be shocked by that? Like, we all love him for what he did, but come on, let's not pretend he was some sort of saint and there weren't dodgy backhanders going on. Of course there were.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do want to focus on this, and I want to go to you, Jamie, when you read this. And I'm not really sure where you fully stand on Poch. Something is telling me you've not been a fan of Poch from the get-go, but I'm not sure if I'm remembering things correctly here. But this is a statement from Poch after the game through Chelsea. He said, "We played Liverpool and Arsenal, and the team did really well. When you see this type of game like today or Nottingham Forest, we dominate, but we can't score goals when the block is so deep. There are many bodies inside the box, and we struggle to score. But in different games, when we played Arsenal and Liverpool, the team did really well. That's why we are not worried." This statement, to me, is so concerning because you play more low blocks than you play good teams in a season, Mr. Pochettino. So you playing well against Arsenal and Liverpool and still not winning, mind you, is not a reason to not be worried, because the fact that we just can't break down the low block is the main concern. Jamie, how and why do you think we struggle so much at breaking down low blocks? Some people say like it's because Poch, that's one of his biggest difficulties and failures, whatever. He had that issue at Spurs, he had that issue at PSG, he has that issue now. Like, your expert talks about it all the time. But that would be valid if we didn't have that issue under every manager for the last 10 years. Like, we struggled, like, even in the seasons where we won the league with Conte and Jose, in those 2 seasons in the last 10 years, even in those seasons, the games where we struggled the most in was against low blocks. And we needed moments of magic from Hazard 9 times out of 10 or Costa to drag us out of those. So to me, it's not as simple as Poch isn't good at it. But to me, there's something so fundamentally wrong at how we attempt to attack. It's just because as soon as we don't have space, to me, it feels like we don't even know how we attempt to attack.
I think comparing to like the previous managers you've been talking about, I think the main reasons why we struggled under like Tuchel, Conte, we have been like a 5 at the back team for such a long time. All these managers, and then Potter came in, same again, 5 at the back, which is really good at like soaking up pressure against teams that may dominate possession. We saw like how well we did in that Conte season, soaking up pressure, and then you attack with Hazard, with the wing backs. Yeah, it's great. And even under Tuchel in cup competitions, it does really good against teams that dominate possession. And then quick, like in the Champions League final, 2 passes, Mount, Havertz, through and goal. And then you just soak up pressure for the rest of the game, play counter attacks. And that's been good for years, but it's never been good in the league. Like, we've seen we can do well in cup competitions, but in the league, this doesn't consistently get you points over 90% of the games, because that kind of formation doesn't get enough bodies for it, because you've got 3 center backs, you're relying on the wing backs. And I think now we've kind of gone to a 4, but it's still kind of the same, because Disasi essentially is like that 5 at the back kind of guy. We still have the 3 center backs. We have no one overlapping on the right. Like, against these teams, against low blocks, you need to commit bodies. Like, that's the only way. Like, you need overloads. You need to be brave in committing as many bodies forward as possible. And then it's down to the creativity, stuff you work in training, patterns of play, sure. But I think
don't
with
you
this,
feel as well? Because to me, that's one of the main issues. To me, movement in the final third is awful. And I'm not actually I don't even often think where the ball is the problem. Because we often, even without overlaps, we get into positions where the wingers can cross, where the wingers can go past one guy and then try a cutback. Like that happens regularly. Or you have a Palmer playing a nice ball and someone even makes a run. But the problem to me is, like, we all, I'm sure, remember that header from the corner from Thiago Silva, who flicked it on, and then he was absolutely furious that no one was at the far post. And even look at Brentford's goal, how they scored. They get a cross in, they put someone to the far post, Chelsea failed to mark them, goal. Now, let me ask you this question. How often do we, number one, put a cross to the far post, because we always go near post or the middle, and how often do we put any player at the far post? It just doesn't happen. There's no striker at the far post. There's no wing at the far post. There's no fullback at the far post. There's no attacking eight storming into the box to the far post. We don't even cover that area. And like, how many cutbacks did we have in that game against Brentford? And we had 2 or 3 players in the box, and they were all occupying the very same area. They were all in the middle, all around the penalty box, all waiting for the low cutback. No one was ready for a ball whisked across the box. No one was ready at the near post. No one was ready at the far post. No one was ready outside the box in case of a deflection, in case of a second ball. We don't. The way we like position our players in attack, to me, it's just everything is wrong with it. And but that's where the main problem comes in. This isn't just on the Poch. I felt that on the Lampard, I felt that on the Potter, and I felt that on the Thomas Tuchel. And I just can't understand how this keeps happening. Maybe I'm simplifying it too much, and the players are, I don't know, the aim is to do different things, and the players in the middle actually go to where they are told in the middle of the week, this is where we try to put the ball. But I just don't see how you can ever succeed at being a good attacking team when you don't occupy the whole box. And we never seem to occupy the whole box. And at that point, yeah, obviously you're right with Dizazian not helping. And obviously, that's all true. But also when Gusto played, we had that problem. Like, it's not like we scored loads of goals when Gusto played. Or when for me, what we do in attack just has no logic. Like, and we also change how we try to attack every game because of different players. Like when Mudryk plays, we attack completely differently to when Sterling is on the left. When Sterling is on the right, we attack completely differently. Or when Palmer is playing on the right, everything's different. Like, even though we changed it, we have the same shape, 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3, whichever way you want to look at it. Last game was more clearly a 4-2-3-1 than it was before. But every game we do something different. Surely, for the love of God, surely, just because you change 1 or 2 players in the team doesn't mean you should change your whole idea of attacking. Do you agree that we do that, Jamie? Is it just me, maybe? But I just can't. Like, how can, especially a set of young players without confidence, how can they ever get good, get routine, get muscle memory going when every game, and I know obviously opponents do things differently, so you have to adjust a little bit, but how can they adapt and get comfortable and get confident and get routine going when we do a different thing every game?
But isn't that down to the manager then?
Oh, of course it is. But it's 4 different managers in a row have had that same problem, that they've all constantly changed it. And I mean, if we figure it out, then that's not a good idea. Surely they should.
Yeah, but it comes down to that thing again where under all these other managers, I think we were the only top kind of team that didn't really play like the meta kind of for the back formation. And now we're kind of doing it, but then
now it's not the meta anymore because City have turned up with a 3-2-4-1.
Yeah, but like even with City, like sure, like Stones goes into midfield, but then you still have Walker going down the right hand side constantly. Even Gavadio can go a little bit like overlap as well, but like Disasi, it was just kind of weird just watching him not once drag a player away, just sitting there and waiting for that pass back and then just recycling it the whole time. And then you talk about like the far post thing, like okay, with the corner, like they must train like every single day, set pieces, someone needs to be there. And I think Jackson is kind of quite poor at anticipating that far post one, but like that's why I'm a bit disappointed with Sterling, because he's made like a whole career coming in on that back post, tapping in these goals. And I think in the first half we didn't give him that opportunity because firstly we had no fullback to kind of put those balls in. But also he's not really getting many of those goals. So I think it's more a system thing rather than, or unless he's completely changed his positioning, what he's done his whole career. But I think it must be a system thing because we're not getting ourselves in these positions to consistently deliver these different type of balls. I think when Reece James came on, there was one kind of ball he like cut back to Palmer, and Palmer probably should have scored. He kind of like scuffed it and it went on to someone else. But I think if we had a fullback the whole game, we would have seen a lot more chances like that, which is a bit disappointing.
We may have done. The problem I have is even if we would have had those, I still don't feel like we would have scored. That's the part I worry about.
Well, that's a different issue.
Yeah, exactly. Charlie, when you see this statement from Poch here, do you, like me, find that a bit worrying that he's like, we are not worried because we played well against Liverpool and Arsenal, but you play teams like Brentford that sit deep and make it difficult way more often than you play the good teams. So how can it be not worrying if you struggle so much against those teams? Especially when, like, it's not like we beat Arsenal and Liverpool. Fair enough then. But we only drew against those as well. How can a manager of Chelsea Football Club that every chance he gets talks about how the club is based on and built on the foundations of winning, how can he then sit there and say we're not worried that we can't beat low blocks because we play well against good teams who we don't beat either? Like, surely that's a worrying statement.
Yeah, it's a bit of a concern because, as you say, you know, like when I saw it on Saturday night after the game, like you're sort of thinking, well, do you realise that, you know, as you say, you play more teams that are going to play a low block than teams that are going to come out and play against you, and like it should be a worry because not only has it been a problem this season, it's been a problem for probably 4 or 5 seasons at least under multiple different managers. So I don't know. I think he's an intelligent man. I don't think he's stupid. He must realise that this is a problem, and he's alluded to it when he's been speaking today. Like this has been a problem that obviously predates him. He's obviously aware of it. So I don't know if this was maybe him saying something publicly, not to criticize the team in public, and obviously, you know, at the training ground or in the dressing room, whatever, he's saying something different. Maybe it's that, but you know, I refuse to believe that he actually thinks that because it's so clear that this should be a major concern because we haven't got the answers of how to do it, and it doesn't look like being solved anytime soon. So for me, I just feel a little bit like, well, hang on a second, mate, like, you know, you've done reasonably well so far this season in terms of what you've come into. Yes, the results aren't there, but you know there are some signs of progression and whatnot. Like you surely can see that this is the biggest problem. One of the biggest problems we've got, and it's down, and you're the guy that's tasked with fixing it. And to say you're not worried about it, like if he genuinely thinks that, then that is a major concern.
Yeah, exactly. It's so like, I'll let you speak on this, Lewis, as well, because you've been quite vocal with issues from Poch in the stream already. I saw an interview of İlkay Gündoğan after Barcelona lost the Clásico against Real Madrid in the last minute to a Jude Bellingham goal. And Gündoğan was sat there in an interview and he was seemingly struggling to, like, he wasn't sure whether he should talk about this publicly or not. But he was essentially saying how, like, the team are not angry enough about losing. The team are not, like, frustrated enough and annoyed enough at themselves. And this is part of the thing I feel. I know, Charlie, you're one of those that, like, you don't mind if like Poch is like laughing with some of the Arsenal coaching staff after the game. But to me, it's like, because we've been losing for so long now, to me, it seems like the players have now accepted that that's what happens. Because to me, we don't fight hard enough to make sure we don't lose in games. Like, considering what club we are and what the expectations here are, when we go a goal down, how the lack of trying to turn it around is, for me, maybe the most worrying thing out of everything.
But there are winners in this team, though. There are winners. Like, you know, we've got Thiago Silva. Reece James has won a Champions League at this club. I know he's not fit right now. Enzo Fernandez has won a World Cup. Sterling's won multiple Premier League titles, FA Cups, etc. Like, there are winners in this team, but I just think there's a fundamental lack of elite level mentalities at the football club. And when you go a goal down, or when a team gets back into a game, we don't have those elite level mentalities and that elite level mindset in enough players to get themselves together and
this
sort
is,
it out.
Charlie, why I said after that Arsenal game that I didn't like what Poch did. Because when the players don't have it, the manager needs to show it. And the manager laughing with the opposition staff is not showing that. And that's where I come from. Because you're right. When you have John Terry, when you have Frank Lampard, when you have Didier Drogba, you don't need them. It doesn't matter if the manager has a little giggle with the with a friend on the opponent's staff. It's fine. But when the players are all 22 and haven't, other than Enzo and Thiago Silva and Sterling, have never won anything, and Reece James have never won anything, well, then how are you ever going to get it into their minds that only winning is good enough, right? And then you sit there, we played well against Liverpool and Arsenal. Well, brilliant. What are you going to buy from that then? You know, played well. Like, it's a joke. Lewis, on this statement from Poch specifically, but also your general views on Poch. You talked about like team selection and stuff, but where do you sit on Poch? Because there's things where I'm like, okay, he does a good thing here. It's a good game there. It's a good tactical setup there, like for example against Arsenal. But I still sit here and, truthfully speaking, I feel by the time January or February hits, I think we will have a new manager. And I know that sounds crazy because they say he will get given all the time in the world.
Doesn't sound crazy.
But yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of there too because I'm just worried about that where our next win's from, because this statement, these quotes just basically laid out the blueprint on how to beat Chelsea. Put a low block there because we don't know what to do, and Poch hasn't known what to do since maybe the Tottenham days or even past that. In terms of how to deal with a low block. Couldn't do it with Neymar, Mbappe, and Messi. Now I need him to do it with Jackson, Sterling, and Mudryk. Or Madueke. Like, I already know what to expect. So now the idea is just, we might have a bit more luck against teams that are better than us, but they are teams that are better than us and could put us to a sword in general. So I don't know. Now, after the bad run of fixtures we have Everton, Sheffield United, Wolves, Luton. Teams that will likely sit back against us. And now we've just been told that the biggest problem is when teams do that. And we've literally just seen it enough times this season to have already known that before. So I don't know if we're going to get results in the next few games. I hope we do. But if we don't, and then we don't get results in the games after that, where will we be by Christmas? And we will probably have to have those discussions seriously by then. I don't want to do it. Like, I want Poch to turn it around. I'd like to think in a couple months' time that I'm overreacting. But I'm genuinely concerned. Very concerned, because it's this early and I'm already looking at the amount of games that we've dropped points in. And I'm looking at the manager for most of them. And I get the stuff with the forwards as well. I understand that. But if that was the case, I wouldn't be focused that much on the manager. I can look at it from both levels in nearly every game, which is why the manager is culpable too, but you're not new. You're not inexperienced. This is your 5th or 6th job. I need more. So, I don't know. I hope we're not in a position where we have to look for a new manager, but...
Especially because who would you look at? Like, we're going to run out, man.
And like, I've seen guys saying, when are the owners responsible? The owners are responsible as well, because like, they picked him. They've picked picked 3 managers, and like neither of them have looked good.
No.
And if I'm going to turn on of managers, I'm going to look at the owners as well. I'm going to be vocal about it too, because like their manager ID will have to come into question. Because then we're saying, do we have the faith in you guys to even pick the next manager? If that's the case.
I mean, Lewis, is the selection of managers, is that your only or your main issue with the owners? Because like JP said here, it starts at the top. Like someone said earlier, what I was talking about in terms of the winning is why Toney isn't the answer, because he's from a club where he's not going to be the guy to want to win at all costs so much.
But surely if he's won nothing, he'll be desperate to win.
Yeah, I don't really understand that. Is it just based on the betting?
Based on what, sorry?
Mate, is it just based on the betting that we're saying he doesn't really want to win?
No, I think it's because he's been at a club where winning every game, he's never experienced that. So therefore, his mentality isn't going to be used to that.
Players go and make the step up to a team at that level.
But we've won nothing in
That's true, but do they... And this is a genuine question. And we're currently, I feel like, feeling that's not happening. Do those players make that step when they don't have players around them showing them how to do so? Because that's the problem. And Thiago Silva and Sterling isn't enough. right? 2 players in the squad being like that isn't enough, especially when Sterling is more likely to get dragged down by the younger, inexperienced players than he is to lift up those players, in my opinion, anyway. That's the type of character he seems. He seems like a lovely chap, and they all get on with him super well and everything. Fantastic. But he's their mate, not their guide. Not their, like, I'm going to guide you to be better, to be stronger. And even Thiago Silva, like, how many reports have we had that he rather throws a hissy fit than trying to get people into, doing things right? Like, it's... But
so here's the thing. I know we talk about the culture in terms of like the amount of outgoings, but the players we had last season took us to 12th.
No. I'm not saying the last season players were any better at it, mate. It's like it was before.
Like the only thing is, like, we should have just gone for experienced players. Some experience inspired the youth. I understand the project because these players could still be amazing in the next 3 to 4 years with the right coaching. Like, I still believe in that, but not bringing in a bit of experience with that can be an L on the owners too. I can understand that as well, because now we are suffering as a result of it.
Agreed.
Exactly.
But could we also potentially, I'm not saying I necessarily think this, but just to like throw it the other way, would you also agree though that rather than just it's better to not sign perhaps any experience rather than make the wrong signings just because it's experience? Like look at the look at the players we've sold. Like Mount don't even start for United. Kovacic not really starting for City.
I'm not talking about keeping any of the players. Those players needed to.
Yeah, but in terms of like, can you also make the argument that yes, we should have more experience, 100%. But would you not rather like have what we have rather than just signing for signing's sake, just to tick a box to say that we signed some experience?
To be like, what?
Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, because it needs to be the right player.
Yeah.
Osimhen wasn't really available. Toney obviously had the ban, so who do you really get? Pochettino won Vlahovic, and I think Vlahovic had a couple injuries this season as well, from what I heard. But I don't know. I could be wrong on that account anyway. In terms of midfield, I think we made the right moves, in all honesty.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't really have problems with the midfield. Defense is what it is. It's just forward line. It's just the forward line, in all honesty. Maybe an experienced forward or just Sterling being a little bit more consistent would have done a lot better for us.
But that's what
it would have done. Like, I see what you're saying, Charlie, obviously. But the argument you can still make is, okay, we didn't go for experience, but did we make the right signings that weren't experienced?
Well,
I like Mudryk. But with everything going on, the fact that he had 50 professional games when we signed him, was he the right signing? Question.
But I don't think
was he a PR signing to take us away from the whole Russia story?
Like,
is that why we signed a Ukrainian? Wouldn't surprise me.
No, but like,
here's the thing: he started to have more games, and I've seen improvement in him. But for the first 5 or 6 games, we never used him. So it's like, who knows where he would have been at now if we had started him?
Exactly.
Like,
or he would have been injured even more, right? Who knows?
I don't think we're not going to really know. We're not going to know how good the recruitment was last summer or whether it was good. Probably for 18 months, for at least 18 months, we won't have like proper answers to if the recruitment last summer was decent. But
isn't that in and of itself bad recruitment then?
Well, look,
because the club isn't in a position to afford that, those 18 months.
But this is the route that we've got, the route that we've chosen to go down. Like, we had experience.
The question is it a bad route?
Well, we don't know that. But was what we were doing last season and the season before, was it sustainable and the right thing to do to carry on with that? No, we all wanted this squad clear out. We all needed it. And, I think that right now the squad's good, but it's not amazing. But when everyone gets fit again and when everyone gets fit and when these players have had more time, and I know it's like constantly going on about time, when they've had more time, I honestly think if players develop how they should, then in a season or in 12 to 18 months, this could be a very good team. I know that doesn't sort out the right now, but I don't think it's like all doom and gloom in terms of the long term. But in terms of the immediate right now, it is quite difficult. There's no denying it.
It's true, but see, my worry with it is, I only got to mention Mudryk, but the same can be said about Mudryk. The same can be said about Jackson. The same can be said about, how many of the other players that we signed in attack that aren't even here? We signed Kendry Paez, who can only play for us in 2025. We signed Angelo Gabriel, who's now playing at Strasbourg and looks better than Madueke and half our other attackers combined. Like, sure, it's a different league, but still, somehow it's looking better there than any of our players are looking. Like, I want to go back to where and how much blame lies with the ownership. And because the ownership want results, the ownership need results, because the way they spend, we can't afford more than another season. Like, I'm not even sure if we can afford this season without Europe. Like, well, not finishing with in European spots this season and not having Europe next season. I'm not even sure if we can afford that financially. I don't know, right? So if you spend like you're winning the Champions League every season, but you perform like you're 11th, that doesn't work out for very long.
But I would say as well, we're not going to consistently spend like that. This was like an unprecedented spend in terms of we had to overhaul the whole squad. So we're not going to carry on spending vast amounts every window.
But you're saying that. We now apparently want to sign a centre-back. We also apparently want to sign a striker. It is now a priority, which I understand. But now you've realised that. What happened? Why didn't you realise that in the summer?
Well, like, I think we did realise it. But let's be honest. Who was realistically available that would have been like a elite level signing?
Bro, who's realistically available now?
Well, Toney.
Yeah, but okay, he's realistically available, but there is big question marks with Ivan Toney as well. The man won't have played football for 8 months. 4 months of that, he wasn't even allowed to train with the team. That's not like that's really like that's like buying stocks. Right? There's a big risk in saying, oh, buying Toney and thinking that's going to fix everything now. Especially, like I touched on much earlier in the stream, he's played at Brentford for years. He's never played against a low block in his life. Why do we think someone that's never played against a low block in his life will fix our problems at beating a low block? I guess you could
what
argue
I mean is like we create chances, right? So like I'm sure the idea is him on the end of the chances we create against low block teams, he probably puts them away.
Yeah, but is it that? Because the chances at the moment don't even. How many chances does Jackson have? But he's never in the box though. Like Toney's like a proper like penalty box striker. But then will we create less chances? Because it must have some effect that Jackson isn't in the box. So does it help with the creation, or because if he doesn't help with the creation, then why are we playing him anyway?
There'll always be someone in the box though. Jackson isn't always in the box. He should be, but he's not.
I think it's also a plan B. Like, Jackson's terrible in the air, and when nothing's going for you, sometimes you just, I don't want to be a team that just crosses and hopes, but like, at least when things aren't going your way, you need that plan B to kind of put those balls in the air. Toney can easily win some flick-ons or layups like that, or score. Like, I don't think we have that kind of plan B at the moment.
I agree, but if Toney is the plan B, what's the plan A?
Well, I mean, he would be plan, like he can play. He's not bad at linking up and doing all those kind of things too. I think he's kind of an all-round striker, which is what we're going for. But he also has the option to kind of switch up the way we're playing to be a little bit more like Route 1.
But he's a good plan A and a good plan B, because if you were to go within Kunku as the number 9 for a game and had Toney on the bench, you've suddenly got decent plan A if Toney starts most weeks, and you've got a decent plan B if he doesn't start, because you can bring him on. Like obviously there's always downsides to every signing, but when I look at Ivan Toney, I look at it overall, I struggle to find any really legitimate downsides to signing him.
Yeah.
Other than the time off, but
other than that, of course. But I mean,
that's going to be reflected in the price, right? You're going to get a significant
well, apparently
discount.
They're still going to charge 60 million.
But I think that's quite fair, though. If you look at 27 years old, right, an England international, who's scored 20 goals in the Premier League last season.
Mate, we don't know if he'll ever be an England international again. Well, there's no guarantee of that. He certainly isn't right now.
Well, no, he's not right now because he can't play. But what I mean is, like, I don't think 60 million. If it was 60 million pounds, or even if it was 70 million pounds, I actually don't think that's ridiculous.
No, I don't think it's ridiculous either. But it's still a risk for another big chunk of money that has.
But
like,
we're not.
By the way, if we sign him in January, he's not allowed to play until what, late February? What is it?
No, I think he can play January 24th. He can play.
Okay, so late January, nearly February, right? So like we could sign him January 1st. He'd still only be here. Like he'd be another Alexander Pato. He'd probably make his debut in fucking April. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, but would Toney be your striker pick, Charlie? Compared to like 100%. Say an Osimhen, someone in the chat was talking about Boniface here, who, by the way, Boniface had been great at Bayer Leverkusen. Before that, at Union SG, which is
Union
Saint-Gilloise, he scored 9 goals in 37. And before that, at Bodo and Glimt, he scored 13 in 48. Mate, what? This is someone even suggesting this is why we are where we are. Stop with these young strikers.
Experience, brother.
It has to be. It has to be someone that scores goals now.
20 G&A.
Yeah. It has to be someone that can do something right now. And realistically, people talk about Santiago Jimenez at Feyenoord. Good player. But the same thing applies. Like, not ready to do it now. Like Boniface, good player, not ready to do it now for Chelsea. Like the only two options, right, are Ivan Toney and Victor Osimhen. You are not going to get Victor Osimhen in January. So the option you have is you sign Ivan Toney. Obviously, I'm sure they have some other names on the list that we might not be aware of. But for me, it has to be Ivan Toney. He's the profile of forward that has been successful at the club in terms of Drogba and Costa, that sort of more physical presence.
But I will say also not experienced at winning anything. It's a bit like a Sanchez situation. The biggest game of his life has been against us.
No,
well,
but
I guess they played championship, you know.
But he is. I think he's a top striker. I think he's a top striker. Like I really do.
Do you consider Ollie Watkins at all? Ashraf seems to love Ollie Watkins.
I think he's good, but I prefer Toney. I just think his style and his profile would suit us better. I don't think
Watkins to me is another counter-attacking striker that wouldn't work against low blocks for me.
I think Toney for me suits what we want to do.
There you go, Charlie. I know you need to head off. I will discuss this with Jamie and Lewis some more. Charlie, thank you everybody. Thank you for joining us. Everybody, go subscribe to Charlie. His link is down in the description, of course.
Nice one, guys. Lewis, I'll see you on Wednesday, mate.
Bro. Take care,
nice one.
See you soon, mate.
See you guys. Cheers.
Lewis, I'll ask you, striker. It's a priority now. Okay, brilliant. Broja hasn't even really been fit, and now all of a sudden it's a priority, but it wasn't in the summer, which to me just screams that we don't know what we're doing. Because how can you sign Jackson, have an injured Broja, and think, we don't need a striker. Now, still Broja isn't fit, and Jackson has been here for 3 months, and now all of a sudden it's a priority. That to me screams we don't know what we're doing. Tell me how you feel about that. But also, which striker would you pick? Like, is it clearly Toney over, say, an Osimhen? Is that only because of the fee? I mean, who else even is available, right? Like, you can't even... Someone said just pay whatever City want for Alvarez, because once De Bruyne is back, Alvarez won't play as a 10, and he still won't play instead of Haaland. I would be down for that, but why would Alvarez come here when, other than City, he could probably go wherever he wants right now and be their starting striker?
If we just got to get some results before we even think about it, well, not really. Like, we do have to try and get an experienced striker, but we're not going to get one if the results don't improve. That's the thing. Like, you could pretend it was one off season in the summer and work on that, but like when the results continue to leak into this season, like suddenly it becomes the norm with us, and we don't look as attractive as a result of that. So I don't know, man. Like, I want us to persist with it, but I just don't really have a lot of confidence in it unless we've already got one who's willing to join us. And if that's the case, fair play. Get me one of Toney or Osimhen. I'm really not that picky on the pair. Like, Osimhen isn't as all-rounded as Ivan Toney is, but he's going to bag me goals. And I know we make enough chances that he'll be able to get goals. He's the type that will score from half chances, will be in the right positions all the time, and only needs one or two. Toney is all round. He's just going to give me a brilliant hold-up play, link-up play, free kicks, penalties, everything. So,
but he's not. Like, I know he scored a lot I know he scored a lot for Brentford, but a large chunk of his goals were penalties. If he then doesn't have all these penalties, will he get that many goals? I know it's been Brentford, but we've not been that much better than Brentford. So
I want to say we're a better team, but are we?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, to be fair, like if you had an experienced striker, I do think we are. So
yeah,
I would expect his numbers to improve. I think we just don't think that because of the situation we're in. It's like, can we even flex anything?
Exactly. I would probably pick Toney as well out of the options that we have. But I am much less confident in you, but even especially Charlie, that it would really change as much as we think, because we thought Lukaku would do that 2 years ago and he didn't. And obviously Lukaku had then other issues that theoretically we could have still gotten Lukaku to, and Lukaku still scored more than all the other strikers, even though he had his being a dickhead and being dropped for a few games and then being awful for 10 games, and he still scored more than all of our other players, right? Which just shows how drastic it was and is. But I just feel like nothing goes right for us. So it doesn't really matter. So that's why I'd rather Toney than Osimhen, because he'd at least be a bit cheaper. But I don't have confidence that would work either. Jamie, out of the strikers that could potentially be available, would your pick be Ivan Toney, or do you have a different shout that potentially hasn't been mentioned?
No, it'd be Toney for sure. There's no way we can do another 120 million, break the record and sign Osimhen. Like
you wouldn't get Osimhen before the summer anyway.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible in any way. Like Toney for 60, and you'd probably sell Broha, because I don't think you can sell Jackson, but you're going to have to sell one of them. And if you get 30 mil in for that, then realistically, Toney's just 30 mil net, right? So, because you can't keep all three strikers happy, no way. If you're going to sign an experienced striker,
with our injury troubles, I think we can.
But you, if they're injured, you just would want to sell them anyway. Like, you don't want to be keeping three guys on the books, three strikers on the books. Like, no team really has that. Like, it's just unnecessary.
We did back in the day. Like, remember, like when we had Eto,
and it was unnecessary. It was always unnecessary. Like, we didn't need all of those strikers. Like,
even when we won the league, we had Diego and Loic Remy and Drogba, right?
How many games did like Remy play, like off the bench?
Not a lot, but that's what you want, isn't it? Like, obviously, City have it with. I mean, I guess they only have two, and then they play Alvarez out of position.
Starting lineup, they don't have any backup striker. Like, if they can do that in all 4 cup competitions, like, I don't think we need 3.
But they only need to do that because they don't have a De Bruyne replacement either, right? They just haven't had as many injuries as we have had. I feel like I also think 4 centre backs isn't enough. I think you need 5. Exactly. A lot of people think 4 is enough. To me, it's like when you have the injury record we've had over the last 3 years, you should always have 1 extra. Like, if by the summer, maybe sell one of the strikers, sure, but not in January. Don't be doing risky business, and because who knows how fit Toney really is? But we don't know that. Like,
to be honest, I want to see how we start to perform once Nkunku. Hopefully in December it comes back, but I think. Yeah, it's unfair to rely on him for goals, but he was the guy we brought in for goals. He's the proven goal scorer, right? So, and we looked very good with him in preseason. I'd like to see how we do, especially with Palmer now, who's shown how creative he is. Him and Nkunku, I think we'll start to see a lot more goals for sure, or at least chances, and then maybe we can assess whether to bring someone in like Toney. But yeah, realistically, if we're going to bring one in, I don't see any other option other than Toney.
There you go. Cranky Pants, Real Madrid ain't buying Reece James right now. Until Reece James stays fit for a sustained period of time, Real Madrid are not going to buy him. I know there's always a few rumours, but don't take things a bit too seriously, mate.
Especially with what we're going to ask for him.
Exactly, and what we should ask for him, mind you, as well.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I don't want him gone either.
I think it's crazy talk to even like. There's people talking about, we need to sell Enzo. There's people talking about we need to sell Reece James. I'm like, mate, these people literally want us to be.
Like, we need Europe back. We need Europe back immediately because people are bored and we're just making some stupid discourses.
And this is the problem. This like we are more likely to get relegated than to get into Europe this season. Let's be honest now. If we have 8 points less now than we did last season, where's that going to go? Like,
I only kind of believe because of my thoughts in the next few games coming up, but I don't want to believe it. And here's the thing: a few wins will turn that around too. But it's just where the fuck are they coming from?
Yeah, exactly. But then we'll win a game or two. We'll maybe beat Spurs. Shock it. It wouldn't be surprising at all to me if we somehow beat Spurs. But then we'll draw 3 others and then lose against Everton, and then we'll lose against fucking whoever else. Like, Do you know what I mean? We'll probably lose against Luton away.
I don't think we've lost a game since we've started playing Enzo and Caicedo on the pivot, have we not?
No, maybe not.
I don't think we have. I think that was the whole plan, and that's where those are the guys we've spent all our money on, right?
No, we played Enzo in the 10 against Villa, yeah.
Exactly. As soon as Enzo and Caicedo have been these pivot players like we expected to happen this whole time, we haven't lost a game. I think we won like 3 of them. I think we really missed Enzo on the weekend, and
I agree, but like
I don't know.
no, I do agree, and obviously it's a shame when you have a player as good as Enzo missing. But Enzo hasn't even been that great this season. I'm not saying he's been bad, but he's not been great for what he can do, for what we know he can do. So because how many games did we actually do that? Like 3 games or 4 games? What you just spoke about, Jamie, in terms of since we played them together. Yeah, but
I think it was since like the Brighton game in the cup.
So it was Brighton, Fulham, Arsenal, and someone in between. I can't remember who. Where it's like, okay,
Burnley. Okay, Burnley away, we always win. Doesn't matter what manager, doesn't matter what season, we always win away at Burnley and we score 3 or 4 goals every time. So I'm not giving any credit for that. Right, Fulham away, sure, good game, happy with that. Brighton in the cup, okay, it's another one of those teams that don't sit back. We do okay against those. But I still haven't really seen proof that with Enzo and Caicedo, we break down low blocks any better than we do with anybody else in the team. So that you might be right, Jamie, but I'm not convinced enough. I haven't seen it enough yet to be confident in it. But to go away from the strikers, we discussed that. The whole centre-back situation. Now, apparently, Chalobah is now starting to get sold in January, which, how can we be so sure about that? The man has been injured all season. Who's going to buy him? Like, let alone for the money, we might ask. But who's going to buy him? And I'll go with you first, Lewis. What do you think? All of a sudden, we want a centre-back. Are we mental? Like, why are we wanting a centre-back? Especially, it's not like they're trying to sign Marquinhos and...
I think it's because they want to sell Chalobah.
We're trying to sign another young player that isn't going to help anything.
I heard it's because they want to sign Chalobah, but it's like, well, Chalobah's not getting any game time anyway, so what's the point of replacing him with someone we're not going to have enough game time to give anyway? It's just, is he just going to be here waiting for 6 months? But I mean, most of the transfers, I've understood, it's just we needed a bit of experience with that too. So
yeah, I agree with that.
If they want to go for a centre back, just make sure you've got a striker first and then do that. But I've heard it might be because Fofana, but good luck selling Fofana straight off an ACL. You're going to need to give him some game time and give him an opportunity. And Fofana was one of our best players last season. So I wouldn't write him off. He's also on a 6-year contract. So, he's here for the long term anyway. We might as well just give him a run. Just let Fofana be the depth. Clearly, we can't trust him to keep playing regularly. So just leave him as the depth. He won't care.
Exactly.
I don't get it, but if the guy you bring in is good, cool.
Yeah, but they're not good though, are they? If any Bayer Leverkusen player you sign, they're gonna flop because they're good because of Xabi Alonso. Before Xabi Alonso turned up, every single one of them was dog shit. So signing any of their players, that won't fucking help because they were bad before. They will be bad after. Everyone's gassing about Florian Wirtz. I'm like, all right, literally what Havertz was 4 years ago. So you just want the same.
I think you watch a lot of Leverkusen.
Nah, I don't watch a lot of Leverkusen. And I know he's a bit different. He's a bit shorter. He dribbles a bit better and a bit more. So there's certain differences. But in terms of being the number 10 starlet of Leverkusen, in terms of having that profile, having a super good record in the Bundesliga, therefore costing crazy amounts of money like Havertz did back then, it's just remember Bundesliga tax, remember Havertz. Why would you risk Florian Wirtz now? We have Palmer, you have Nkunku, you have Carney Chukwuemeka, you have fucking even Gallagher. All 4 of them play the same position as Wirtz. Wirtz is not what we need right now, man. Anyway, no, but let's not compare. Go watch Havertz from 5 years ago and then do compare him to Wirtz because there's not a lot different. If anything, Havertz had a much better record in terms of goal contribution. Wirtz might be technically better, but output, Havertz was miles ahead of Wirtz. I'm just saying. People love to hype up Wirtz now because he's having a great season, and so they should, because he is fantastic. But Havertz was fantastic then. He's not anymore now. We all agree. Don't come at me yet, Lewis. He was just good then. Not anymore now. I get it. But I don't know. I mean, Jamie, where do you stand on let's sign another centre-back? Why? Mate, we're playing centre-backs at full-back all season. We don't need centre-backs.
Isn't Poch... They've come out and said Poch is going to have a lot more control over transfers, right? So, if anything, this kind of scares me more, that he thinks our centre-backs are better as full-backs, so we need more centre-backs. I can't really think of any other reason why we would need more centre-backs, especially when Fofana's back. I know Silva will probably go, but we still have Badiashile, who hasn't had a game.
Surely Silva won't go in January, will he?
No, not in January. But
we seemingly want a centre-back in January, though.
I don't know. It's confusing to me. I don't get it at all.
I don't get it either.
Yeah,
it's a good point,
it's either the owners or...
It's a fair argument, actually. The whole, that Poch now has more of a say, and all of a sudden we want another centre-back. So what does that tell?
Yeah. It would be
what does that tell me about all the centre-backs that we do have? You know what I mean? But Yashil hasn't even played this season. Fofana hasn't even played this season. What? Colwell has played the majority of the season at left back. It's all of it is a mess. And like Lewis said earlier, I just don't see how it gets better and when it gets better. And that's the worrying and frustrating thing for me. But if we get knocked out against Blackburn on Wednesday, then what? Because the season is basically over then. We have the FA Cup then, but Man City are still in the FA Cup. So, until they get knocked out of that, our season's done already. It's not even November yet. Okay, it will be November 1st when we play Blackburn. It's just...
Yeah, we can't lose that.
Honestly, I'm at a point where I'm like, get us relegated. Play a season of championship, we'll win a few more games at least.
We better win that game. Otherwise...
We do have to win that game. I mean, Jamie, how do you see the next few weeks going for us? Do you see any sort of improvement? And I'm not saying necessarily in performance. I mainly mean just in results. Until Nkunku comes back. But every time I say it, every time I hear Poch say it, every time I hear anybody say it, until Nkunku comes back, when Nkunku comes back, there's so much pressure on him. First of all, I think we're going to rush him back and he's going to get injured again immediately. And even if that doesn't happen, I think he's going to have so much pressure on him that I don't think he will perform the way people think he will. So, how do you see the next few weeks going, Jamie?
I think as Pot said, we probably will get more points in the next few games than we do against these Brentfords and that, because we have a terrible record against low blocks, right? So I think maybe we get a few draws, a couple lucky wins, which is probably better form than what we've seen during our easy run, right? So I think it will just be more of the same, maybe a bit better, if anything, because I've seen enough to know that we can perform against these better teams. We haven't had a bad performance against a so-called good team so far from what I've seen. So I'm not super worried, but it's just once we get to these games that you should be winning, that I think we're going to struggle again, because Pochettino doesn't really have an answer for that at the moment.
No, he doesn't at the moment, and that's my worry. I mean, John asks Osimhen the answer. We discussed that already. All of us would probably pick Toney. I mean, just quickly, if money wasn't an object, I know, Lewis, you said you don't mind, so I mostly phrase this to you, Jamie. If money wasn't an object, would you then pick Osimhen over Toney, or would you still?
If they were the same price.
Yeah.
If they were the same price, yeah, I guess I would. It'd be close though. It honestly would be close for me, because
even age. I know Osimhen has won at least a Scudetto and stuff, but he's only 24 as well. That adds another young player.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms, I just really want someone who has a clear record of scoring in the Premier League. That's it. What if Osimhen comes in and, like so many other strikers?
So you're saying bring Lukaku back?
Sorry?
So you're saying bring Lukaku back?
To be honest, like Lukaku under this kind of system would work a lot better than what we saw under Tuchel. I think the whole frustration and the falling out was he wasn't really playing in a system that suited him under Tuchel. In that kind of 5-back, he kind of struggled.
But that's exactly the formation he was so good in at Inter, and they played on the counter.
Yeah, but he had Martinez like next to him. We had no one playing off him. We had these wingers wide, fullbacks relying on the wing backs, and nothing was really going off him. He likes to have players near him because he's quite good at kind of holding up and doing these little layoffs or spinning defenders. Like, he didn't really get that opportunity. And then when he came back in, he actually, like against Villa, I think he scored 2 goals. Like he showed he could score goals. I think he just didn't play that much, and because of that falling out, right? I don't think
I remember him playing 10 games in a row, not scoring and being shit in every single one of them. But
I think if Lukaku was playing that Brentford game instead of Jackson, I think we win. Like I think he gets a couple.
Obviously, I agree with that, but you know, how many other issues does he cause, right? At the same time.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, the reason why he's not here is because his attitude sucks, and he has, I don't know, some kind of mental problems, clearly. But yeah.
I was so glad, by the way. I hate Inter, but I was so glad that Roma didn't somehow beat Inter. That Inter did not deserve that over the whole Lukaku thing. But Lewis, just quickly before we round this one out, how do you see the next few weeks going? After fixtures up there, obviously it's a lot of difficult games. We should beat Blackburn. Let's see what happens against Spurs. I'm very confident that we will lose to City. Newcastle away, honestly, how are we winning that? It's no chance. Brighton at home. Are we really going to do a double over Brighton? Seems unlikely to me. We haven't won at Old Trafford for feels like 2 decades. And Everton away, we never win either. So really, the game I'm most hopeful to get a win in is Spurs away, and they're fucking top of the league. Do you know what I mean? So like, how do you see the next few weeks going?
Oh, I don't know. Like, it just looks depressing, in all honesty. We should be beating Blackburn at least. At the very least. Tottenham might turn up and nick a draw if we're lucky, but I doubt it. They're also probably the luckiest club in the league right now. City, loss. Newcastle, loss. Brighton quietly feels like the sort of game we could get a result in. Just because they play attacking football, and their midfield ain't really all that, but they'll make chances. Just let's hope Sanchez don't spend the whole first half passing to them this time, and we'll be fine. United, Ten Hag still in charge. I guess we could nick something, but we never like going there anyway, so it's probably a draw. Everton, don't like going there. Don't like playing a low block. So, yeah, I got no confidence for that one at all. Hey.
A last question.
It's up to them to prove us wrong.
Yeah, there you go. And likely it is they won't. But one last question. One of the things that I think for all of us Chelsea fans makes the situation we're in even harder is the fact that Spurs got a new manager in, were in the absolute shit at the end of last season. Who did they have for the last few games? Ryan Mason as interim manager after
I think so.
Yeah, exactly. After Conte got sacked. They lost Harry Kane. They have their only they signed what's his face, the Forest guy. I'm not sure if he's officially a striker or not, Johnson. But their only main real striker is Richarlison. Has he by now scored a Premier League goal? Maybe one. They've turned the winger into a striker. They have an Australian manager, and they are top of the league, and everything works perfectly for them. But for us, nothing works. How do you explain that? Because we can sit here and say, oh, it takes time, the new manager, the new players, but they have a new manager. They have a lot of new players. Why does it work for them and why doesn't it work for us?
Because he's a better coach. That's it. That's why I don't really have as much patience. I mean, I'm saying trust progress, not the process.
Can I ask you an honest question? Do you think if Ange Postecoglou turned up at Chelsea, he would be as good as he is at Tottenham? Because that's the part I don't believe.
Probably, because I remember when he was joining, like, I never really heard anything about him, but when I researched him, like there's just a lot of Celtic fans talking about how amazing his football was, how much he improved all of the individuals in that squad. They said it was the best football they'd ever seen. So they said like it was a worthy step up for him. It wasn't really like he was coming in from stinking at somewhere. So, and he's come to Tottenham and he's done this. So why, especially after they lost Harry Kane, why wouldn't I think he'd come to Chelsea and ball out?
Because we're Chelsea. And nothing works for us at the moment since this new ownership is. And I reckon I reckon he'd probably be good there too.
Here's the thing. I look at the mentality and I look at the setup, and it's already not been good enough. Tottenham fans are talking about how much their mentality has improved. What was the last era that they used to flex on? Now they don't talk about that one anymore. Why? Because the mentality was different there, but that was Pochettino's Spurs.
Yeah.
Different mentality. We go into games to protect the points against a winless Bournemouth side. We get a red card against Aston Villa. We go, let's protect the points in that game, even though we need results. Against Arsenal, when we're 2-0 up, we take off all the forwards. Villa, we took a striker off and put a DM on. Like, biggest thing to me, like, in spite of all the bad finishing and everything, is the mentality looks very worrying right now. And if the setup's not good enough and the mentality's not good enough, you're already doomed to fail.
Do you think their mentality is better because they don't have that pressure? Or is their mentality... Because it's easy to say the mentality is better when, other than that cup game they lost against, what was it, Fulham? They essentially win every game. It's easy to have good mentality when you win every game. Like, the real truth of how Spurs' character is will only be shown once they lose a few games. I think Spurs fans saying, our mentality has improved doesn't mean anything.
I said I'm already Poch out. Like, when have I ever said those words, by the way? I'm very critical of him, but I haven't said it yet.
No.
People just get all sensitive when it comes to Chelsea players or managers, and it's ridiculous. Like, keep the club first. Why you got to look at the deep reasons as to why we are where we are, and I'm talking about the owners as well, because again, they've got to come into credit with a manager ID. But Pochettino has come in. He was meant to be good with a young squad. So I'm not seeing the results yet, and until I see the results, I'm not with it. If I see the results, cool. Like, that's all I need. I need my club to do well, but we're not getting results, so we need to have these uncomfortable conversations.
Exactly. The problem is that I don't know how much time a manager should be given anymore. Because back in the day at Chelsea Football Club, when we changed managers, we won instantly. That's how it worked at Chelsea. But then you also saw last season, and I saw with Potter, and then I saw, obviously, Lampard isn't really a standard to go by. But Potter, like, I know Potter was really bad at Chelsea, but Potter isn't a bad manager. He might not have been ready for the magnitude of the job at Chelsea, but he's not a bad manager. And even he had 10 wins and 10 undefeated games in his first 10. Poch is nowhere near that. Obviously a different squad, I understand that, and a lot younger and everything. But I don't know how much time is enough time. But I also don't know who would you get instead? Would you get another interim and then get a new one next summer? Would you get someone in straight away? Who would you get? Is there anyone good? I mean, I wouldn't have thought of Postecoglou a year ago, but how can I trust the people that did pick Poch, that did pick Potter, to pick someone good?
It's what we said after we lost Potter. The next manager we pick is very, very important. And I want Poch to be the answer, but right now he's not showing it. Nope. So
he isn't.
As long as he isn't, like, you got to look at the manager, you got to look at the owners too. But I don't know who you bring in. The only thing I can look at is what I'm seeing right now, and it's not good enough.
It's true.
So I'm not saying get rid of the manager, but I'm saying this isn't good enough. And why are we just going to ignore it and just say blindly trust the process, back it, believe in it? No, I believe in results. Show me results, I'll back it. Like, I remember Frank Lampard, the first month under him was hideous, but then we started getting results and we were top 4 for all of the season. So I was like, okay.
And then second season we were top of the league until fucking December, and he still got sacked a month later.
Yeah, because
Lampard had a bad month. Poch has now had 3.
But we were able to look at one bad month under Lampard and say, okay, you know what? This guy probably isn't it. 3 bad months under Poch from the start. And it's like, with statistically the easiest start to the season out of everyone in the league, by the way.
But obviously also statistically the most injuries of anyone in the league. That it still has to, I know it's not an excuse, but it still has to be mentioned.
The only players who are really injured that really walk straight into the team and make a considerable difference would have been Jameson and Cuckoo. And we had Gusto playing at such a good level that was it really that deep? No. It's not like going from James to the corpse of Azpilicueta like we were doing for the last 3 years. It's different. So it's just in Cuckoo.
Nah, but bro, I think that's a bit too simple because, okay, in Nkunku, sure, but you didn't have a backup striker because Jackson was new, but Broja isn't fit, so you can't even sub them on. Mudryk has been on and off fit.
But we wanted to give Jackson a run.
No, we wanted to, but you still need to have a different player to bring on for the last 20 because, otherwise it's too much pressure for a player like Jackson. Mudryk hasn't been regularly fit this season. Madueke hasn't been regularly fit this season. Enzo Fernandez has now had a small injury. Caicedo has already missed game with injury. Lavia hasn't even played yet. There's a lot of but Yashil arguably
players out of position. Like he's put himself there for putting fucking Ben Chilwell at left wing instead of potentially putting Maatsen, who could have offered us more in that position.
That was the first 4 games of the Prem, and I think everyone's quick to kind of forget about those lineups that were so ridiculous, like 5 defenders and Chilwell at left wing. I think everyone's kind of forgotten about it and now blaming experience or owners or recruitment, but I think Pochettino had such a good preseason and could have started the season with a lot more positivity, and that could have maybe brought more belief from the players in the system. But when you start the season with like all your wingers on the bench and Chilwell there, I think that does a lot for like the mentality of the squad. It certainly gave a lot of like catching up for Mudryk and these other players to do because first 4 games they didn't even get any minutes, and they're seeing
but again, we only found out after that Mudryk was injured for part of preseason. We didn't even know. If I know that, I'm like, I understand the whole Chilwell left thing a bit more. He's not really fit.
He played that last game against Dortmund, and we played very well. And you would have.
He did, but apparently he had some sort of knock again after that. So
no, he came on against Liverpool in the opening game, so he clearly just wasn't trusted to start that first game, and I think that did a lot for his confidence. Seeing after a very good performance against Dortmund, just being dropped for Ben Chilwell, and then continued that for 4 more games. Poch really started off terribly with his team selections, and it's got a bit better.
Especially when you see the manager picking essentially experience over anything else, but the club purchases players on everything but experience, and that just screams problem from the get-go. That screams not knowing what to do as a football club. When the manager wants nothing but experience, but the owners buy him everything but experience. Like you're sure, and there's a lot of things to blame Poch for. Absolutely, I agree. But like, if he wants experience and all the ownership give him is young players,
then there's clearly there's been a disconnect there, because when they've been interviewing managers, they surely would have explained, this is how you're going to play. We have a lot of young players. We will back you if you continue to play these kind of players. But he clearly was okay with it, and then came in and completely done the opposite and completely changed the whole structure of the squad from what we've seen in preseason just to accommodate that, which is strange. I think that's more on the manager than the owners, because he should have known what he was coming into.
That I agree with, but him playing, say, one of the half-fit or however fit wingers instead of Chilwell at the wing doesn't guarantee we get any more results. It looks better, but there's no guarantee for anything. So he might also still have the same, and then we'd all be crying just for experience rather than, that's where it's just that there's no solution to it. Like even this statement from Vic here saying Mourinho threatened to drop JT and Cahill, according to JT on John Obi Mikel's podcast. Mourinho said he'll sign Varane if they don't buckle up. That's not the case anymore with the players on prison contracts. Sure, but you can't treat young players like this. You can treat John Terry like this. You can treat Gary Cahill like this 3 years after having won the Champions League or being an established England player as well. You can do that then as Jose Mourinho. You can't do that to a 22-year-old Mudryk and a 21-year-old Madueke and a 21-year-old Caicedo and a 20-year-old Palmer and a 22-year-old Jackson. It's different. Like, you need to treat the squad differently if it's a different type of team. But yeah, at the end of the day, my only problem is I hope Laurenz got this from the guys that Enzo would play with. This is true, but I also owe someone 200 quid because I was so sure Gusto would start. Cheers for that punch, by the way. But there you go. Yeah, I think we're going to round this one out. Ladies and gentlemen, please check out Lewis's channel, Carefree Lewis G, link down in the description, as well as Jamie's CFC Deep Dive is also linked down in the description. And of course, again, Charlie's channel as well, Blue Brother, CFC Blue Brother. Check that one out too. It's a miserable time. I hope we can beat Spurs, and if we do beat Spurs, everything will be better. Chances are we'll probably play quite well, take the lead, bottle it, and draw, and then we kind of have to force ourselves to be somewhat optimistic again, and then that will last until we play the game after that. Obviously, we have Blackburn before that. I mean, that's a must-win game anyway. If we lose it, we might as well sack Poch then. And if we do win, I'm not going to celebrate beating Blackburn like too hard anyway.
Not unless you give me. I want 3-0 minimum. 3-0 minimum.
And it won't be. You know that it won't be, bro. We'll probably start fucking David Washington. Let's be honest.
No, when they slap that low block, bro, it's gonna be a long night.
Apparently, they play a 3-5-2 as well, so that's great. Can't wait for that one. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 3 centre backs this time. Who we not gonna have? Is it gonna be the right back or the left back?
Hey, who knows? See,
I'm going to say no left back. We're going to throw Colwell back there this time.
Yeah, I could see it. Maybe Martin gets a game. No, but let's be honest.
I would like to see Martin there. Yeah.
Maybe. The real question is
what Poch won't do it, will it? See, the one last thing on that, right? If we're going to do the whole 3 centre-backs thing, at least play like City do. But we don't even do that. We just actually play them at fullback. Like, if you play 3 centre-backs, at least play them as kind of centre-back. You know, like Ake and Guardiola play for City. Yes, they go forward at times, but they essentially still are centre-backs. But when Colwell plays for us at left-back, he's an actual left-back. So I'm like, you're trying to do what Pep does, but you're not doing it properly. Everything's a mess. Nothing we do just makes any sense.
The reason why City do that is to build up in a 3, right? Which would make sense if we did that, but we build up in a 2, and we have Disasi picking up the ball as a fullback rather than in more central areas where he'd be more comfortable, right? So it's just very, very strange tactics, man.
It really is strange. It really is strange. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to round it out. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe, hit that like button. That'd be massively appreciated. Like I said, check out the channels of all the other guys linked down in the description. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.